In today's video, I'm going to go over Auburn's defense in 2025 and who I think is going to start. It's a little difficult with the defense because there's a lot of rotation, so it's hard to just say definitive 11 guys. So just keep in mind the names I say, it's going to be a little more nuanced. So the first player I have is a defensive end, Keyron Crawford. I believe Keyron Crawford will be our main defensive end. He'll be a senior in 2025, playing his last year of college football. He is 6'4", 245, and he was a transfer from Arkansas State. So his job will be to replace Jalen McLeod's production last year, and we'll have these younger guys come in to take his role. So we really need Keyron Crawford to have a big year. He was getting better throughout the season last year. He's got all the physical tools you need. I think he's going to be a good player in 2025, and we really need him to step up in order to have a well-rounded, good defense. And on the other side of the defensive line starting, I have Amaris Williams. He will be a sophomore next year. I believed he burned his red shirt. So he almost left Auburn. He entered the transfer portal. We sent a squad out there to North Carolina, and we got him back. He was the 30th overall player in the 2024 class, so he's a guy with a lot of upside, a lot of potential, a lot to be excited about with Amaris Williams. The official Auburn roster has him sitting at 6'2", 269, but I assume he has gotten bigger since he first came to Auburn. He had 7 total tackles last year, 5 solo tackles, a half of a sack, and 2 assisted tackles. So he didn't play a lot last year, but he did play in the Texas A&M game on one of the last goal line stand drives that was super important. They obviously have faith in him if they played him in a pivotal moment like that. So Amaris Williams, very exciting player. We hope that he can take the step that Keldric Faulk took from his freshman to sophomore year. Hoping he can be that guy that's kind of a staple of the defense and can cause disruption. As of right now, unless we get somebody else in the transfer portal, there's no one else I can see starting other than Amaris Williams. At defensive tackle, I have Keldric Faulk starting in 2025. Maybe the best player on our team. In 2023, he started pretty soon into his career, and in 2024 he was probably our best player on defense the whole year. He has 81 career tackles. He had 45 last season, 11 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, and he was the SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week against Kentucky. But honestly, he was probably SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week every single week of the season because he's just that good. He's him, Max Aura. I mean, he's a leader. At the beginning of the year, he went to SEC Media Week. He's the leader of this defense. Everything revolves around Keldric Faulk. It would be just awesome to see him even take his game another level up from last year. And I think it will, because from everything I've heard from him, he's just a very hard worker, and he's just going to keep improving his game. You know, he's one of those players, when you're elite like that, you just have that mentality of always trying to get better, improving, never settling for where you're at. And he's one of those guys. My honest prediction is that he will be the best defensive player in the SEC next year, or at least the best defensive lineman in the SEC next year. So really excited to see Keldric Faulk next year. And he was the first big flip that Hugh Freeze got back in 2023. He was about to go to Florida State. I'm sure you guys remember watching that commitment video, waiting to see where he went, and it turned out to be probably the biggest get of Hugh Freeze's career so far. And I know Keldric Faulk isn't a true defensive tackle because he played mostly in last year, or he switched a lot between defensive end and defensive tackle. I'm sure he'll be flexible again this year, depending on how everything pans out with our defensive personnel. But you get the idea. Defensive end, defensive tackle, you know. But I think this year we'll have more reliable defensive ends, and he's going to stick to more of that defensive tackle position. At the other defensive tackle position, I have Malik Blocton starting in 2025. And this one is also pretty obvious, like Keldric Faulk. He was a freshman last year, will be a sophomore in 2025. And he played in almost every game, if not every game, last year. He's the brother of Demarcus Harris, who I'm sure you all know was a great defensive player here at Auburn. Played the same position as his brother. So another player to be very excited about. He had 16 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and 1.5 sacks. He measures at 6'3", 291, but he also probably got a little bigger since he first enrolled at Auburn as a freshman. He's another player we really need him to take the next step to be even better in order for our defense to be super elite next year. But there is nothing to worry about with Malik Blocton. I believe that he will take that next step and be an amazing defensive tackle next year. Not many freshmen come in like Malik Blocton and do what he did. So that's another very solid position we have on our defense. And just looking at this defensive line, if everything goes the way we want it to go, and I think it will go, we're going to have one of the best defensive lines in the year next year. For cornerback 1, I have Kayin Lee starting in 2025. He started in 2024 and he's going into his junior year, so of course he's going to start in 2025 as well because he is a great cornerback. He was a true freshman in 2023 and he played in every game. He had 20 tackles his freshman year, and in his sophomore year he moved to the starting role, had 32 tackles, 7 pass breakups. He measures at 5'11", 181. So most Auburn fans probably know Kayin Lee by now, number 4 on the field. And like Keldric Faulk, he was the other big flip that Hugh Freeze got when he first came here and was recruiting the 2023 class. We prevented him from going to Ohio State. So obviously if Ohio State wanted him, he's a good player, and he's shown that to be very true. Some people say he might have taken a step back his sophomore year, but I don't believe that. And it's always hard to know how good a cornerback really is because the less you notice them in the game usually means the better they're doing because they got their man on lock. And you know Kayin Lee always has his guy on lock. So Kayin Lee is another position that is very solid going into our 2025 year, and you obviously need good cornerbacks in the SEC. So Kayin Lee, be excited about him. He's going to be one of the best cornerbacks in the SEC next year if he isn't already. At the other cornerback spot, I have Jay Crawford starting in 2025, and this one is very obvious. He was an amazing freshman. Jay Crawford was a big surprise to everybody. In the 2024 class, he was a 3-star, ranked the 35th cornerback, and the 43rd player out of Georgia. So that just goes to show you that rankings aren't everything. And Malik Blocton as well, one of the best freshman defensive tackles in the country, was the 45th ranked defensive lineman, 3-star, 27th player in Alabama. He was on the SEC all-freshman team. He had 15 tackles and 7 pass breakups. Oh, here we go. His first start was against Oklahoma. So that's when they started to realize, oh my gosh, this guy is really good, and Keontae Scott is not really good. No offense, Keontae Scott, but Jay Crawford is just him. And he also had 1 interception. So Jay Crawford might be who I'm most excited about next year, because seeing what he did his freshman year, it's only going to go up from here. He's definitely a dog. Listening to his interviews, he's got that elite mentality. So he might just be our best defensive back next year. And that's a really good thing to have. Him and Kayin Lee is not a defensive backfield I want to be running routes against. So the work that DJ Durkin and Charles Kelly, those guys are doing a great job. Now at the other cornerback position, I have Champ Anthony starting in 2025. He is kind of a hybrid defensive back. He played safety, he played corner, played nickel. So he's pretty versatile, but he will definitely be in the backfield. He got hurt. I'm sure everybody remembers that insane hit he had in the Arkansas game. And then maybe the next play or a few plays later, he had a really bad injury. And I pray that he heals and gets better because he is a great guy and a great football player. He was a junior college transfer and he played in every single game in 2023. And in 2024, he took a massive step and was a super good player for our defense before he broke his leg against Arkansas. So don't be fooled by his face. That looks very young. He is a dog. And I've always liked him. I've always liked this player. Listening to his interviews, he always seemed like a really cool guy. And I hope the best for him in 2025. I hope he gets healed up and he gets back on the field because he is another player in our defensive back room that is one of the best defensive players in the SEC. I mean, just looking at this defensive roster so far, it has a chance to be one of the best defenses in recent Auburn history, if not all of Auburn history. Champ Anthony measures at 5'11", 182. And he had 12 tackles last year, 10 solo tackles, 2 assisted tackles with 3 pass deflections. So we didn't get to see his full potential realized last year because of the bad injury he had against Arkansas pretty early in the season, but I don't think that's going to hold him back. He's going to be a great player, and there's nothing to worry about there. So at linebacker, I have Demarcus Riddick starting 2025. So he's going to be a pretty obvious starter next year, considering what he did his freshman year. They only played him in this certain formation called like cat or something like that, where his role was mainly to make sure the quarterback doesn't run, and he kind of played with a lot of freedom, just making sure there wasn't a big explosive run or something like that with the quarterback. And they said they didn't want to overload him with a lot of information because he was so young. But now he's going to have the whole offseason to understand the defense more, and he's probably going to be our best linebacker next year. He measures at 6'2", 217 from Clanton, Alabama, and he was the 69th player in the 2024 class. He was classified as an athlete in the 2024 class, the 5th ranked, 6th player in Alabama. He was on the SEC all-freshman team. He had 5 tackles for loss and 3 sacks. So at the beginning of the year, he wasn't playing that much, but as the season progressed, he started playing more and more and took on a bigger role, and he ended up being a very nice surprise and a good player last year, somebody we needed. So if he takes that step, like everyone thinks he's going to, his sophomore year, he's going to be one of the best linebackers in the SEC. Super athletic, really fast. Even though Jalen Milroe did outrun him, that's all right. We're going to sweep that under the rug. And this is a player that Cam Newton loves. Don't you love him, Cam Newton? Oh yeah, this boy's a dog. He's going to be amazing next year. So the other starting linebacker I have in 2025 is Xavier Atkins. So this one is so far maybe the most undecided, most controversial. Xavier Atkins was the 42nd linebacker coming out of the 2024 class. So he was a freshman last year, but I don't see any other linebackers as of now that would start on our team other than him. And based off the history of Eugene Asante, Austin Keys, Dorian Mausi, all transfer linebackers, they all started when they came to Auburn. And Xavier Atkins is a good player. I listened to the Locked On Auburn and Locked On LSU crossover, and I heard the LSU reporter talk about Xavier Atkins, and he said he was definitely capable of being a starting linebacker in the SEC. He was just in a very crowded room, maybe didn't have the clearest path to playing time, but he is somebody with all the potential. He's from Texas, so you know he can play. And he still played some last year, and he played in important snaps for LSU. But I believe when he comes to Auburn, he will kind of be that Eugene Asante. He's 6 foot, 200 pounds. And again, there will be a lot of rotation at linebacker, because with him and Demarcus Riddick on the field, you won't really have that big, meaty run stopper filling those gaps. You might put DJ Barber or Joe Phillips in to do that. But I think Xavier Atkins will have the second most snaps of the linebackers. So that's why I'll put him on this graphic. Now at safety, starting 2025, I have Kaleb Harris. Another situation similar to Jay Crawford, Demarcus Riddick, Malik Blocton. Came in as a freshman. He wasn't very highly recruited out of high school. He was the 39th ranked safety coming out of the class, a 3-star, 26 player in Alabama, played at Thompson. And he came on to be one of the best safeties in the SEC as a freshman. He had 48 tackles, 3 pass breakups, and he saw his first action in the very first game against Alabama A&M. And he was on the On-3 midseason true freshman All-American team. I'm pretty sure he wasn't on the SEC All-Freshman team, but he got robbed. I think they put like KJ Bolden or something because, and I know KJ Bolden's a great player, but he definitely deserved to be SEC All-Freshman safety and maybe even All-American in the whole country, best freshman safety. So if Kaleb Harris can take that next step into his sophomore year and be a super elite safety, again, we are looking at history right now. We are looking at one of the best defenses in Auburn history if everything goes the way we want it to go. And Kaleb Harris is going to be a key part of that. He measures at 6'1", 201, and again, like all the other freshmen, probably got a little bit bigger. I don't know if he got any taller, but he probably put on a little bit more weight. And he hits hard. He's one of those hard-hitting safeties. So I'm sure Kaleb Harris will continue to develop over the offseason, and he's going to come into next year as one of the scariest players on this defense. And at the other starting safety, I have Sylvester Smith. In 2023, he played in 4 regular season games and the Music City Bowl. And then he took that big step in 2024. He had 29 tackles, 1 interception, and 2 pass deflections. And he will be a redshirt sophomore. Same situation as a lot of the other players on this defense. Took a huge step forward this year. And going into next year, we expect him to be even better and be an elite safety. So that really speaks to DJ Durkin and how all these players are getting so much better, which makes for a very exciting 2025 season. Seeing what our defense did last year with all these guys, because all these guys that you see right now were playing last year and they were young. So they're just going to get even better. And then the year after, they can still play and get even better. So we're looking at the start of something scary here on the Plains, led by the man himself, DJ Durkin, with that beautiful head of hair he has. And now for some other players that I think are important to mention, honorable mentions, you could say Joe Phillips, Malik Autry, Jared Smith, Anquan Fagans, Ryan Strader. I think all these guys are going to play significant snaps next year as well, because obviously you can't just have the same 11 guys out on the field the whole time. Joe Phillips was from the 2024 class. He was a top 100 recruit. He's kind of like a buck linebacker, gets after it in the pass rush. I believe he will play this year. Malik Autry, the 5-star out of the 2025 class, need more defensive tackles. He's already like 6'4", 320 pounds, so he's already there physically. Jared Smith, our highest recruited player out of the 2025 class, 6'6 and a half, 235. So he is like Slenderman out there if he doesn't put on any more weight. And I'm sure he will, and he really needs to. It would be scary to see him get to like 260. Some guy that's almost 6'7", 260, if he could put on some weight, he is definitely going to be on the field next year. And there was a reason. He was the second edge, 25th overall player coming out of the 2025 class. And then Anquan Fagans, he will also almost certainly play a lot next year. He is one of the best safeties coming out of the 2025 class. He was the 6th ranked safety, 79th overall, but honestly, he might just be the best safety out of this class. I don't know what it is about this player, but there's something about him you can just tell he's going to be a really good safety. 6'1", 180, so definitely watch out for Anquan Fagans. He might have a similar year to how Kayin Lee, Jay Crawford, Demarcus Riddick. He's probably going to be one of those guys that freshman year, really good, a lot of potential, and then moving into his sophomore, junior year, going to be one of the best players in the SEC on defense. And then lastly, Ryan Strader. He'll probably be the 3rd or 4th guy in the cornerback rotation from Maryland. Really good player. He is the 5th cornerback in the transfer portal and the 66th overall player coming out of the transfer portal. And then the last guy, I don't have his name on here, but watch out for Dallas Walker. Dallas Walker, the 4th, a transfer from Western Kentucky, 6'4", 318. He will definitely play and be a solid piece to the defensive tackles. So please let me and Cam Newton know your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree? Disagree? Do you think there's any other players that I should have mentioned? Who are you excited about to watch next year? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching.